Hello. Well, I'm haunting Surrey Hills in Sydney, which I haunt quite a bit, and I'm going to be talking to someone from one of my favourite practices, a practice that I respect a great deal for the quality of their work. That practice is Richards Stanisich, and I'm lucky enough to be going to have a bit of a chat with Kirsten Stanisich, who obviously is one of the founding partners.
The Architect and Interior Design Show would not be possible without the support of our official partner, Studio Barnyo, the architect's choice for bathware. Book a product presentation for your practice with Tony Rowlands at studiobarnyo.com.au.
Hey, hello, Kirsten.
Hey, Tony.
I think so. The last time I saw you socially was a wine tasting night, and you were on the wagon. It wasn't very exciting. And here we are with water. But anyway, so let's talk a bit about. Actually, I'd love to know more about Richard Stanisich and Kirsten at Richard Stanisich. How did it all start? What's going on?
Well, how it started was originally Jonathan, who's the Richards, and I were business partners at SJB Interiors.
I remember that.
For a long, long time. And then it's about over 6 years, maybe 6.5 years ago, we just made the decision to put our names on the line and rebrand under our own names. And so since then, we've been working as Richard Stanisich. And part of that is really being able to evolve a practice into exactly what just the two of us want it to be. But as the practice is going, we've got other significant people in the practice as well. It will keep evolving again, like it's never going to be static. But it's just really about creating something, I guess, that we're super proud of and that we really enjoy working in at the same time.
I can't believe it's only 6.5 years,
I know, it's weird,
and the work that you're doing is such high-profile stuff. You know, it's marvelous. How did you come to get into interior design?
I originally studied architecture, so I'm an registered architect as well at Melbourne Uni.
Oh, okay, you're a Melbourne girl.
Yeah, I'm Melbourne. I grew up in Melbourne, so I studied at Melbourne
good.
Uni. Yeah, it's a beautiful town. It's a great place to study architecture.
Yeah.
So I was there and I finished my architecture degree, and I worked as an architect for I think it must be about 3 or 4 years, and then I worked for SJB Architecture in Melbourne, and I got seconded to work with Andrew Parr in SJB Interiors. Because they were actually working on a nightclub in the casino down there. Mm-hmm. And once I worked on that, I just loved it. And so I ended up staying with SJB Interiors and kind of worked my way through the ranks. But I mean, I love, we're doing a lot more architecture again as well, because I think sometimes you return a bit to your roots as well. I love architecture, I love interiors. I think I really like the approach of working through architecture, developing architecture really through understanding interiors to the extent we do. It kind of gives you a really base kind of vocabulary to start designing architecture. And so it's been exciting to really look at detailing and those kind of things too in a different kind of viewpoint.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody sees the relationship that way, and I'm with you. I mean, I think that the two things are one and the same. There's sometimes you can see a building and the interior is so disparate from the exterior, or it just doesn't relate to the people or the functions. And I know from your work that it's always very individual and very focused on the particular project and the result that the client wants, and you give it to them, I guess.
Oh, I mean, that's good to hear, because I think for us it is really important that clients come to us and they do feel like what we give them is them. It's still got our kind of fundamental philosophy or aesthetic or way we like to design, but bringing something into the client, gives it that makes it really special. I think it gives it the uniqueness.
I know that Jonathan likes aspirational clients, and I guess you do too. Yeah. So but so just thinking then, What is there a philosophy? Does this practice have a philosophy?
Yeah, I think we do. I think both John and I, we're very excited by detailing. And detailing doesn't always mean over detailing, but really thinking about what the details of a project might be. And I think with detailing, there's so many different ways you can approach it. There's a quite a traditional architecture way of approaching it, which is about being very rigorous, which is you really come up with a concept and a strong idea and you really follow it through, which I think we love doing that as well. But I think we've both kind of moved into a bit more direction where we feel it's almost we've learnt so much of the fundamentals and the way to do it that I think we're probably operating more from our gut, which is about our intuition, which is still based on a lot of experience, and just moving into other ways of detailing. And I think that that's a big part of how we think about projects. I mean, John and I both have slightly different ways we approach how we develop it. We both love planning. Both of us love working out. I think the fundamental of working out a really, really great floor plan for any building just gives it, it's just a great foundation to start the work of any design. I think Sydney, especially the planning issues in Sydney, are super, super challenging, really, really challenging. So there's a lot of outward forces. Architecture's kind of interesting because in some ways, a lot of architects might disagree, but in some ways I actually think the design process for architecture has more of a simplicity in some ways than complex interiors do because they get so specific and so detailed. But I think the connection back into the environment around it in architecture has so much complexity that as interiors you don't really have to deal with that. So they've got quite different kind of things that make them challenging.
Yeah, I think that you've just explained your creative process pretty thoroughly, and I think that's quite fascinating. That the architecture thing and the relationship of architecture to streetscape is something that fascinates me and kind of drives me bats. I think there's so much more that could be done across Australia, Sydney and Melbourne. Street activation and our obsession with height instead of maybe 4 to 6 stories and streetscapes and human scale but that's another story.
Yeah.
That's sort of how something functions inside an apartment or a home is so important and so complex. An architect, his work I admire a great deal. He's dead, so I can talk about him, I guess. is Harry Seidler, who used to do insanely good spaces. I mean, you can go back to his buildings from the 60s and you could do anything you want to the interior, but they were never totally functional. Their PowerPoints and small things like that were always in the wrong space, So that's something that I know you guys get right all the time.
We spend a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, we definitely spend a lot of time thinking about it. And I think the thing is too with what we do is it's kind of the experience of it's all around us. It's kind of what you want to pick up in each space. Like if you do go into a space, or it doesn't have to be a space, it can be outside, it can be anywhere, and you kind of think about the things that feel great to you or don't feel great to you or think would be made better, or it's a tweaking of an idea. I think if it's kind of in the mulling in the back of your head, you just learn a bit through constant immersion in it, and I think that that's a major part that plays. So you can you could stay at a friend's house, or you could go somewhere, or go to the country, or go to a park, or do a whole lot of different things. And there could be the way the grass feels on your feet, to the way the light hits you at certain times of days under the tree, or how it filters, or there's so many parts to it. I mean, it can be even in this room, like in the warm. We've had pretty warm few days, and the stone's lovely and cool, and it just kind of feels really nice in here. The feeling feels right for what we want. We want a meeting room to feel calm, and that we can have a conversation, and that colour feels natural, and to work out those things. And but that gets through. You know, you do a lot of trial and error. You learn a lot through. They call it practice for a reason, because we're constantly evolving, and you can have your favourite sort of finishes or materials or kind of directions on some things, but you get to a point where you want to break it or learn from it or rethink it. And I also just think it can be the experience of what is happening in the world that can reflect, impact even how you design. I mean, I feel like at the moment there is a need for a lot of colour, and I mean there's been a lot of that sort of Milanese, burgundies and beautiful blues and those sort of Milanese colour, but I feel like it's almost, you know, it's time to move to something that's even almost more kind of, not floral as in pattern, but in maybe that reference of beautiful, more very sort of, you know, floral colours and softer things, just because we kind of need it right now. So I think letting those things wash over you and working out how to do that is important, or makes me feel.
I think that's a wonderful emotional kind of a response to design, and I'm colour mad, and someone once said to me, you know, about what colour goes with what. Well, just have a look at birds or flowers, and there are the answers. And really, some amazing things can happen. I love colour. I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago about being in Mexico City. I don't know if you've ever been there. You know,
it's amazing colour.
Yeah, exactly. And the houses are all these crazy colours, and it's gorgeous. And I wish we had more colour here too. There's another thing on streetscapes. So yeah, I'm always following, I don't know, Dezeen and various magazines and things online, God help me, and there's stuff comes up, you know, that this is the colour for 2024, and I think it drives me crazy, because I think it's basically consumerism. So, okay, well, I paint the room this colour this year, and next year I change it again. I mean, this kind of thing about style or fashion is rubbish.
Well, I'm not completely anti it, because I really love history, love it. I love history, I love fashion, I like all of those things. And sometimes I think what they do is they really tell you a story about what's, you know, they're an underpinning to a bit of a story of what's happening at a particular time. So although we kind of fight it and say, oh, it's fashion and I don't want to, fashion's who we are, and fashion tells us a lot about what's happening. Well,
we're a fashion game,
So I think over-consumerism should be separated from fashion, because fashion doesn't actually have to mean that it means wasted consumerism. So I think it's okay. It's just working out what the two actually mean independently. It's like luxury. Luxury means, to me, doesn't necessarily what it means to someone else. Luxury to me is not wasting our beautiful resources. Luxury is about maybe incredible hand finishing or doing all these other things that create luxury about something that's special. So I think a lot of those things I think are okay. And look, everything goes in and out of fashion, and we cannot. I've never seen or never heard, even in the Stone Age, things went in and out of fashion. Yeah. It's part of who we are. I think it's just being thoughtful about how we do it.
I guess, and if something's good, it's always good, in a respect. Otherwise, why would you have a modern room with one Louis XV chair or something like that? That's because it's bloody good. or a Marcel Breuer chair from 1918. I mean, good God, it's gorgeous. So, okay, well, that's all interesting stuff. I know one thing that you said, and I'm going to try and paraphrase you here. I might get this wrong. It's sometimes something that's ugly can be really beautiful. Now, sorry, that's cryptic.
Do you know what? The guys in the office always laugh at me about saying that. They bring up the line every now and again when they're teasing me. But I think what it is really looking for what is beautiful about a thing, and that often, you know, we'll have this thing about something that's surface, and we'll say it's ugly and it's got to go. I think it is a bit about that idea of anti-consumerism, I guess, but it's looking deeper than just a physical thing of what a space means or what anything really means. I mean, often spaces that we thought were the ugliest spaces a period of time ago can then become the most beautiful spaces again. You just see it changes and evolves all the time. So I think it's just trying to have a really more of a gut response to really seeing the beauty in things, I think.
Okay, well now
That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense now.
Sounds
It makes
a bit wanky, but you know, that's not it.
Needed a fair bit of elucidation, but yeah, no, that makes a bit of sense to me. So that's good. I mean, I'm quite blown away by the philosophy that behind your work, the ethic. I mean, I know the results, but where it comes from, the emotion, where it comes from, the guts of it, it's pretty impressive, Kirsten.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
Well, it is. I mean, it doesn't occur everywhere. That's why, you know, this is a favourite practice of mine, and I'm so enjoying this combo. Is there anything more you want to talk about?
I think also saying those things, you've got to remember too, John and I getting, you know, we're definitely getting to the, especially me, not as much John, but older end to our career. So you get at a different, you know, it's very different when I was in my 30s or 40s, when really you've got to take on the work that you can get. You've got to learn what you can do. So I think it's also thinking about where your, you know, as your career evolves, where you want to go in certain parts of it and what you want to achieve out of it. But I do also think it is really, you know, a bit of a dicky word, but that idea of resilience, and is just really, if you really, first of all, you've got to work out, do you really want to do it? Because there's no point being a designer and saying, I'll have resilience if it's not in your heart. It's got to be in your heart to want to do it. But then there is a lot of kind of painful learnings along the way. Like, I think learning a lot of things in our industry can be a bit scary and overwhelming and uncertain, and changes, and how we would resolve a situation 20 years ago can be very, very different to how a situation gets resolved now. So it's about being open to things changing that are outside your control and working with them to still navigate it how you feel happy with, and just being a bit tough. I think you've got to be a bit tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kirsten, I'm blown away. I've learned so much. I really have.
Some philosophies for you to take into your own life.
And I think that anybody that listens to this will find it very, very interesting, because the word you used then was heart, and that actually has come through in everything you've talked about, and it's rare to find responses that are so emotional, and I think that's absolutely marvellous.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for our chat this afternoon.
Total
Kirsten.
pleasure.
Thank you.